there's no reason that we're not running, right, a $1 billion a month operation. When you care about people, you're handling their largest financial transaction probably of their life.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Austin Zaback Show. Today, we got a dear friend of mine and kind of a business partner of mine, which we'll dive into a little bit later. But this guy, his name's Maier. He's actually in the mortgage industry, and we were doing a lot of big stuff together. He's been in the industry for a long time, and I'm just excited, and I appreciate you being here, man. I appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah,
glad to be here. Thanks.
Of course. So Matt, dude, we just got out of like a 2-hour meeting.
Great meeting.
Phenomenal meeting, and we're making big moves, and I'm sure we'll get into a little bit of kind of what we're doing here in a little while. But just for everybody listening and everything like that, talk to me a little bit about what you kind of do and kind of where you came from.
Yeah, so let's start with my background, right? So my background's a mechanical engineering degree from Duke, and been in Arizona for about 20 years. And then most recently, before I was in mortgage, I was a teacher. And before that, I was in sales and ran a couple of different customer service retail outfits. So got kind of a varied background, a little journeyman, process to kind of get to here. But almost the last 10 years now in mortgage, and kind of found my place that allows me to use that engineering and problem-solving world and the educator world that I so dearly love, but wasn't feasible for supporting a family of 5 kids. So.
For sure, yeah. What type of engineer?
A mechanical
engineer. Okay,
yes, sir.
That was your first thing you did. That you went to college.
Yeah, I went to college for. So I grew up in just outside of Detroit, and right, everybody there is in the automotive industry, and all the kind of guys I looked up to is friends, parents, or whatever worked for the big 3 or some supporting company in the engineering field. So that's where my love of that began. And I was really good at math and physics and science. And so it was kind of this natural go get a degree when you're 18. You don't really know what you want to study. So picked engineering. It was great. I realized I didn't want to be an engineer, but didn't want to accumulate any more debt. So got the degree. I love a lot of things about engineering. I just never actually did engineering as a job. But
got it.
Yeah.
So going from Detroit to being, an engineer, like what was that like? I mean, was it, when I feel like when I hear the name Detroit, I think of, and this is probably totally inaccurate, I would imagine to some degree, but I think of like, dangerous neighborhoods and you know what I mean? Like
there's probably still parts of that in Detroit. Okay. I know they've done a lot of work, but I haven't lived in Michigan since 99. So, 24 almost years now. And I grew up in the suburbs. There's goods and bad parts of a lot of the metro area, but I love Michigan. Just don't love, especially this time of year, don't love the cold. The economy there's been a lot worse than a lot of parts of the country for the last couple of decades. So I've been grateful to be out, but also still have the chance to visit, and a lot of people I still love and call dear friends that are there.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, dude, it's cold there right
it's
now.
Cold. It's cold. Yeah, we try not to visit for the holidays too often.
What does it get down to out there?
Oh, negatives with the wind chill. Yeah, and it's even if it's not that cold, it's like gloomy, right? So you don't get the sunshine. You don't get like these little things that like
depressing.
A little bit.
Yeah. Well, there's a stat I read one time on like Seattle. I have a lot of family that lives in Seattle, and apparently people are like way more depressed, and the suicide rate's like way higher. And I'm like, man, like it goes.
Is that
to
the
show.
Seahawks' fault?
Right, exactly. Yeah, for real. But it goes to show, right?
Yeah.
Like, what weather. I mean, we I feel like in Arizona we just take it for granted, right?
Exactly.
It's like just beautiful 300 days out of the year,
Yeah, we're really blessed, and it improves mood more than I think we realize because we just live in it.
We live in it, we're used to it.
Totally true.
100%. I love that, man. So then you did that. That didn't end up being your thing. Then you went and became a teacher?
Yeah, well, so after that I moved to Arizona. My brother had a place here, was done with college, didn't want to go back to Detroit, didn't want to stay in North Carolina. So landed in Arizona and, went from a little bit warmer climate to a lot warmer climate. Yeah. And then I just never left. I did a bunch of things. I ran a parking company. I did insurance sales. Okay. I did a bunch of stuff, waited tables for a little bit, overlapping some of that. Ran a couple Starbucks, ran some franchises for edible arrangements, did a bunch of weird, just kind of found my way. And really my 20s was like, I have no idea what I want to do, but I need to make money. And then I got an opportunity to become a teacher at a small private school in Gilbert. And realized like that was really my passion. If that hadn't popped up, I was probably going back to school to go that route anyways. But really, really fortunate to have had that opportunity and get to really understand like my passion for empowering, educating, growing other people, right? Because all those other things were, less about development of others and more about development of self. And to be able to turn that around and find a place where that passion could really be fueled was a huge piece of my journey.
What were you teaching?
High school math.
Okay, math. Okay.
Yes,
Got
sir.
it. And you're good at math. You were
Good
good
at
at
math.
Yeah. Math was my best subject.
Okay.
When I was growing up, it was actually the only subject I was good at. I hated it. For whatever reason, I didn't like history at the time. Now I do. Now that I'm older. But when I was a kid, I didn't care about anything.
History's hard to appreciate when you're a child.
When you're a kid, man, you just don't care. I mean, a lot of people don't, I guess. Some people do, but I didn't. But I loved math. It made sense to me. I could take a piece of paper and I could do math. Right. And like it was like, for some reason I just liked it. Right.
Well, there's a right answer.
Right.
There's it's not subjective. Right. You turn in you spend hours on a 10-page paper and it's like maybe she likes it, maybe she doesn't. I don't know. Yep. Math, it's like I either got it or I didn't. Right.
Yep. I love that about it. Yeah.
Amen.
And you can reverse engineer a lot of math problems. You can take, it's just like you can look at a math equation from so many different directions. I feel like, and I never got in. I didn't go to college, so I didn't get into like advanced math. But when I was in high school, I got all the way up to whatever the top math thing I was in. I'm sure it was. I don't even know what it was, but it was
like a calculus, algebra.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, all that good stuff. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and once you get into the real advanced stuff, it gets weird anyway, so you probably stopped at a good time.
Probably, yeah, and I'm grateful for that. And so I'm curious, you jumped around a lot in your 20s, and for a lot of the younger people that are listening, like I always tell people, I'm like, when you're young, man, like there's all these young entrepreneurs that are on social media, and they're on IG, they're on TikTok, and maybe they're even like 16, 17, 18 years old trying to figure out what they want to do, right?
Sure.
And advice that I always give to them is like, go do a bunch of stuff. Yeah. Like while you're young, right? Because you don't have a family yet. You don't have a bunch of overhead. You don't, you can afford to fail a bunch of times, like trying to figure it out, right?
Yes.
So talk to me about your experience. Like, are you grateful that you went through and you did all that? Okay.
Oh, totally. I mean, some of it was necessary evils to pay the bills, right? And to keep things moving forward. But I took a lot of shots. Like building the insurance business was a massive failure on paper, but I learned so much about understanding money, understanding compound interest, understanding protecting your family, understanding building a financial plan, budgeting, all of that, right? So, it flamed out after 3 years because the recession hit and I was a 20-year-old trying to sell annuities to 70-year-olds. So that was tough. But at the end of the day, you learn so much from all of your experiences, whether it's tangible because of the material and the thing that you're doing, or if it's just life lessons of business can be hard. Life can be difficult. You have to make tough decisions. You have to take risks. You have to bet on yourself. And sometimes that's the scariest part, but when it pays off, right? When you get to sniff that success, when you get to feel that win, like that does something for your soul that carries with you. And to be able to have the flexibility to take that shot before I had a wife and kids, and I've got to figure out how to pay the apartment rent and keep the lights on and food in my stomach and gas in the tank, and that's it.
Yep.
Right. And that's really it. We didn't have YouTube, Instagram. We didn't have those things back when I was doing that, when I was coming up, I'm in my 40s now. So, you had to go build a business. It wasn't like you could create content that could generate one, right? So
interesting.
It's a very different world. The ability to be an entrepreneur now, I think the access is a lot better, right? There's a lot less overhead or challenges to being able to procure the capital or the voice, to be able to have a vision, to be able to go create really what you want your path to be. Yeah. A lot of kids today have a lot more opportunity than your parents did. So, they also might have some reservations about it, but I say, man, go for it. If you can, you never know what you might build. You never know what path God's got you on that may end up being, this isn't it, but you learn something so valuable or got connected to somebody that unlocks the next thing that you're supposed to do. And if you don't take a shot, you're never going to succeed.
I agree, man. And I think, a lot of it is relationships, right? And you don't gain those relationships if you're not out trying new things when you're a kid. And like you said, whatever path God's got you on, the right door will open.
Absolutely.
The wrong one will close, and you just got to keep on keeping on, right?
That's right.
And eventually you'll land, you end up in your 30s or your 40s, and you will be, assuming you consistently kept progressing, you will be very successful, in my opinion.
Right.
I think
absolutely.
it's literally a math formula. Like, that's what I like about success, right? Like, when I was brand new to entrepreneurship, I realized at an early age that it's basically a math formula, and it's actually way simpler than people think, right? It's if I just do a bunch of stuff and I'm consistent, right?
Yep.
And I work really hard and I put myself out there and I give it enough time, I will be successful, right? Like, it's a math formula.
It's really true.
You can't not. I mean, I see people that, like, it's like you can't go and give it your all for a decade and not be successful. Like, if you're really giving something your all and you're trying enough things and you're on the right path,
Yes.
you can't come out the other end of that and be not successful. It just doesn't. The math formula would be broken then, right?
Yep, I 100% agree. I think the only place where people fail is when they quit, right? When they allow scarcity, or when they allow some of the, and there's some reality. Some of these things, like they're legitimate fears. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have them, but understanding how to overcome them, being surrounded by people that can help you push through them, so critical. Because you're right. If you go do the work, you're gonna be successful. You're gonna grow. You're gonna right. And unfortunately, there's a lot of jobs out there that you can go put in extra work, extra effort for a decade, and you're in no different position, right?
Yeah.
But when you take that bet on yourself, when you go create something you're passionate about, and you pour in the energy that goes into that, and whether that may change, right? What it is may change a little bit, or it may evolve, or it may not end up in 10 years where you thought it would, but that journey is going to be far more rewarding. But you got to put in the work. That is one thing I think that a lot of people miss, is it's really easy to see some of the instant success that's available in the world, in the marketplace, or to see somebody who has that story, or to wake up and look at your parents or somebody who's slightly ahead of you in their career and go, I want that. But there's a lot of work between where you start and where that person 3, 4, 5, 20 years ahead of you is, that you have to put in. You can't just wake up and be there.
Yep, I agree. And you have to go through it, right? I
Absolutely.
always say, like, that is a part of the equation, and you've got to have the trials and tribulations in order to appreciate this success. And I totally agree. Bob Proctor used to call it your personal development set point, right?
Yep.
And he would say that whatever your personal development set point is the amount of money you'll end up having in your bank account, right? And that's why a lot of lottery winners and athletes go broke, because their personal development set point was here, and then a large amount of cash got injected into their bank account, right?
Yeah.
And the cash ended up coming back down to meet the set point, right?
Yep.
And so the opposite is also true, though. If you go do a lot of work on yourself and you're improving yourself and you're evolving, right, and your set point goes up, then it's only a matter of time before the cash in your bank account catches up to the set point, right?
That's right.
And it's just like a thermostat. You have your thermostat set at 70 degrees. A windstorm blows in and cools it down to 50. The heater's going to kick on and bring it back up to 70. The opposite's also true. It's set at 70. A heat storm comes in and brings it up to 100. The air conditioner's going to kick on and bring it back down to 70, right?
Yep.
So you've got to get that set point up to where you need it to be to achieve the success that you're looking for.
Yeah, I actually had a realtor that I worked with for the last 8 years now that helped me do that. It was really interesting. Like, as I was growing in my mortgage business, we were playing golf one day, and he goes, "Hey, so how much money are you going to make next year?" Right? And I was like, "Yeah, I don't really know." And he's like, "But what's your set point?" I was like, "Well, I mean, I think I can make this, and I think, our team's going to do that, and, I'm partnered with this guy, so I get a split off of that." And he's like, "What's the number?"
Yeah.
What's the number? And I said a number, and I went and beat it by 80%, right?
Wow.
But I don't think I do that if I don't have a number, right? And I don't have a set point. I don't have a goal. I don't have a dream. I don't have a vision. It's if I'm just working. That was when I switched from being an employee in mortgage to going, like, how do I go grow and create something, have a visionary outlook for my career, instead of just showing up and doing the job.
Yeah.
Right. And that's that mindset, that first thing has to click, and then you set that bar right, and you be a thermostat instead of thermometer.
I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're driving to this instead of reacting to all of this.
Sure.
And that's a big piece that you you got to go through a little bit of that, right? You don't just wake up and do that well. There's very few that do. Most people learn that skill.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I want to talk for a minute about you got into insurance. What type of insurance were you doing at the time when you were young?
Yeah, life, health, disability, annuities. Yeah. So
And what did you learn in that industry? If you've ever wanted to get into wholesaling real estate and you want to learn how to flip contracts and wholesale, right? Maybe you're brand new, maybe you've never wholesaled a deal, or maybe you're even doing a couple of deals a month right now, but you want to learn how to do more. Instead of joining my coaching program or somebody else's coaching program, we're actually looking to hire. So go ahead and message me 480-418-5339 and send me a text message opportunity. Okay, so if you want to work with me, you want to work with my incredible team, you want all of our leads, you want all of our systems, all of our processes, everything, right? And I've done about 2,000 wholesale deals in my career, then go ahead, shoot me a text, 480-418-5339, and message me opportunity. And look, especially if you're in my state, okay, the state of Arizona. If you live in Arizona and you want to get into wholesaling, this especially is an opportunity for you because you can come sit right in this office with my entire team and be a part of one of the biggest wholesaling companies in the country. I look forward to talking to you. Because in the meeting we were just in, I had a guy on the podcast the other day. His name's on social media is Mr. Burr, Devin Burr. And he got mentored by another dude, I can't remember his name, and then I heard Keith bring up infinite banking.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, it was the first time I'd ever heard about it.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, if you learned about that when you were a kid, or?
Yeah, one of the things that I learned and still implement to not just protect but grow assets and finances for my family is using permanent insurance as a tax protected vehicle, right? I mean, the what you can do through that and understanding how to really leverage it. If you really get it and you have the ability to go, because now I can go make a bunch of money, right? I can level set up here and I can make a bunch of money. I can dump it into vehicles that I will never pay tax on again while protecting my family, setting up my kids for, right? Instead of 529, I have insurance policies on my kids.
Yep.
Because if they don't need it for school, whatever their path looks like, they're 5. I don't know what 13, 14 years from now looks like.
Sure.
So, that's where, it's a really, really, really powerful vehicle, but you've got to understand it and sit down and make sure it's the right plan for you. That's what I was coaching people through is how do we understand how to break some of the traditional molds of our understanding of finances and take control, right? And yeah, 401k is great, but if you're not getting a match and if that match isn't vested by the time you leave, it's really, your money could be doing so much more for you.
Sure.
Right. So, but it's the easy thing that employers offer. CPAs like it, right? But it's limited long range. What if you could pay, I always told people you could pay tax on the seed or you could pay tax on the harvest, right?
Yeah.
Let's go pay tax on the seed so that I get the whole harvest.
Reap the harvest.
Yeah. Right. So those are the types of things that again, just a mindset, right? And it's how do you make money work for you, right? You work hard for your money. How do you make money work for you? And then, the biggest piece is how do you then build something where people work for you? So now you have 3 different ways of creating money, right? Your work, other people's work, and your money's working. And that's kind of the trifecta in any industry.
I like that a lot. I've never actually heard it put that way. You work for your money, trade time for money, right? Which is what most people are trained to do, right?
Correct.
And then there's level 2, which is probably you get your money to work for you. So now you're making money while you sleep, right?
Yeah.
Because your money's out working for you. And then level 3, or your level 2 and 3, I guess, could go in either direction, right? But it would be then you hire people. You actually then are buying time. Is the way I've always heard it said, right? I can go purchase time because I could buy a 40-hour work week human being, right? That will then go produce money.
Yeah, right. And if you teach and train and develop them well, then you create that same opportunity for them. That's the beauty of our industry, right? Compared to a lot of businesses, right? Is you only have staff. You don't have the ability to create some of the opportunity that we can create in real estate and mortgage with our staff, right? That is a huge differentiator, I think, for us. And the insurance business is similar in that way too. But, a lot of businesses, when I was running Edible Arrangements, my driver's never going to own the company, right? The person answering the phones is their role is their role, and there's not really a growth track for them. This is a job. That's it. That's all it'll ever be. They may love it, and they may be really good at it, and it may propel them to something great. I hope it does, but it's only ever going to be a job.
Sure.
And that's, finding an industry where everyone that works for me has career goals and has ability to grow outside of their current station and where they came into this industry at. Like, that is a really cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah, bro. I want my transaction coordinators literally to own real estate, right?
Yes.
And have life insurance policies and eventually, have multiple streams of income, right? And I want people that work in my organizations to get to a point where they're making more money outside of my organization than they are in my organization, but they choose to stay because we have such an incredible culture and we have such an incredible family and we're an incredible group of people and they want to be here, not because they have to be here. And then it changes the dynamic of the workplace, right? Because now you have an environment of people that they're not showing up because they have to, they're showing up because they want to.
Amen.
Right? And then, they just have an extra stream of income by being here too. And it's not a requirement for them, right? So I love what you're saying. You get to help people, I think, in real estate and mortgage now, which we'll talk more about, and many other things that are ancillary of those two things, are ways that you can help people do that, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm learning about the infinite banking. I really actually want to dive into that more and learn more about that. I never put much thought into it until recently. I had a lot of buddies that do life insurance and stuff like that, but I always just thought of life insurance as death insurance, right?
Sure.
And
you're getting married, so now you need that.
Right. Exactly, right?
But there's another piece to it.
There's another piece to it. And what I'm learning is there's actually, it's how can I use the life insurance while I'm alive? Right?
Exactly.
It's called life insurance. It's not called death insurance, right? But most people use life insurance as death insurance, which is fine. You're hooking your family up, right? Which is great, right? And I think you can still do that. But what I'm learning is that, hey, I can actually figure out a way to leverage this while I'm alive.
Amen.
And still, my family can still benefit when I pass.
Oh, yeah.
Right, which is I knew nothing about until recently. So how did you, is that something you just learned when you were going to, how did you learn all that when you were younger?
So I was actually waiting tables and a guy said, it was like an MLM type of thing. So, hey, why don't you check this out? Get into the financial services industry. And I was like, I've always been interested by finance. I graduated from college in 2003 with an engineering degree and I didn't want to be an engineer. And there were no jobs really in finance relative to when I made that decision, right? So after September 11th, all of the Wall Street jobs, all of the finance jobs really got cut significantly for recent grads. So anyways, long story short, I'm still interested in this finance world, right? Yeah. This guy's like, hey, come check this out. So I show up, I'm a kid trying to figure out what I want to do. Ends up being an MLM thing, but you could make a lot of money stroking your own pen. Right. And it was something I didn't have to go get a big bank to hire me and take a shot on me. Right. And I could build my own little business. I had the ability to be a builder, which is always something that was inside of me. Yeah. So that's where I learned it. I learned it by selling it. Right. And I learned it by owning then. And then, as my family grew, right, that became the vehicle. And I actually still, the guy that trained me and mentored me in that business is still my financial advisor.
No
today.
Way.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How many years later? 15 years, or what would that be? Give or take.
I met Vince 2004.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. How cool is that?
It's coming up on 20 years, right?
Yeah.
I watched his kids grow up and get married and help them buy houses and help Vince refi houses, and he sends me clients. And it's really, really cool to be able. Again, you go take a shot. You never know what relationship and how that relationship's going to impact you for years and years and years.
And who knows where that relationship will continue to go, right?
Exactly.
You always say, you don't know the value of a relationship until you're lying in your deathbed. Because you can't measure it until then, right? People always ask me, what's the value of social media? Right? I get asked this all the time. I was on a Zoom call yesterday talking to a guy about putting together a podcast. And people always ask, what's the ROI, right? What have you made, right? And I say, well, it's impossible to answer that question, but let me try to explain it, right? And I say, basically, you have direct ROI, okay? So direct ROI, you get an affiliate link, I sell a course, I sell a house, I sell something to somebody who found me on social media, right?
Yep.
And I can measure that. I'm like, okay, you came from my Instagram or from my YouTube or from podcasts, and I made a sale.
Right.
And I made $100 or whatever I made, right? And that's great, but that's actually not why I do social media, right? I do social media for the indirect ROI, which is what we're talking about, which is, okay, I meet somebody because of this.
Right.
And then 20 years from now, they call me and they have got $1 billion business idea, right? We partner. I'm a billionaire. Okay, so I can't measure that until literally the day I'm lying in my deathbed. People are like, what is the value?
Right.
You spend all this money and time on social media. What is the value? I'm like, dude, I'll tell you in 50 years. Like,
Right.
let's have a conversation then, because I have no idea. I
Right.
know it's way grander than I can even imagine,
Well,
right?
certainly than you could ever potentially measure today.
Agreed.
Like, it's not even close. And it may not be in dollars. It may be in
Agreed.
people. Right? You never know.
It could be health. It could be,
Yeah.
there's so many different things, right?
Yeah.
It could be the reason you end up in a relationship. It could be,
Right.
how the reason you end up with having children and having a family. I mean, it could be anything in the
So
world.
many things.
Yeah.
Yep.
And money's just one avenue.
One
of
of
that.
the pieces.
I want to dive into the mortgage stuff a little bit,
All right, let's go.
and talk about. But first, before we dive into kind of where you are today and what
Yeah.
we're working on, and I want to break that down a little bit here. But how did you get into mortgage? And like, what did that journey look like? And
Oh.
who are you working for? And
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
great, dude. So I was really fortunate. So I was a teacher, and it was a small Christian school that was on the brink of surviving. And this is 2014.
Okay.
So 2014, the school's maybe not going to make it after this school year wraps up. At the time, one of my best friends, still a great friend of mine, his name is Ben Andrus, was growing his mortgage business. He was a couple years ahead of me in mortgage and growing, and basically needed somebody that could handle the back end, somebody that could help him process applications, think critically, problem solve, put together things, be detailed, and allow him to go grow and sell and be a visionary. And so we had a conversation, and you'll think this is funny. He literally said to me, he goes, "Bro, if you can do anything else with your life, you should go do it. This is stressful. This is hard. This is exhausting, right? Like, because we're on all the time. And if you care about the people, which he does, which I do, right? Which is how our business was built. Like, when you care about people, you're handling their largest financial transaction probably of their life.
Sure.
And if that doesn't weigh on you, then you're not doing it right. Right? And when you're trying to do 20 plus of those a month, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot to carry for people. So, and he said that a little tongue in cheek, but also like there's a toll that comes with doing this job. And I prayed on it, sought out a couple other avenues. I came back to him. I was like, no, this is what I want to do, and I want to do it with you. Or can we do this? And he was, a great mentor, boss, friend. And then that evolved into partnership as I grew in my role and my understanding and my skills inside the industry over the first few years. Like, grew to partnership. He was running a couple of different branches that I helped then support him running. And then just recently is where I ran into the opportunity with Essex and with the more revenue sharing model. And it was one of those points in time where I wasn't looking for anything, but then when I saw the model, I was like, oh, this is made for me. And it was also kind of the right natural step in my own personal growth to take a chance, on my own. Sure. And so that's where that kind of landed. I mean, it's been a great journey, and I've been really fortunate to be around great culture, great people, with a great leader and friend and business partner throughout all of that season. And now I get to go see what I've learned with all of that and kind of, to a sense, put my money where my mouth is and go see what I can build with the opportunity that's been presented here. So
yeah, that's awesome.
It is really cool.
Were you at the same mortgage company? So you obviously you became an LO, right?
Yeah.
And then when you got in, and then were you at that same company the whole time up until where you're at now?
No, we were at primary residential, which was a great net branch model, an incredible place to learn as an assistant because you were so integrated into the file and the success of what it meant to put together a mortgage. A great model for learning, right? So a lot of LOs will come into like a really high processor centric model, and it's, I have to learn this much, and then I throw it in, and their job to clean it up and fix it. PRMI was built this way, where I was literally A to Z, and if something went wrong, it was 100% on me as the assistant.
Yeah.
So a phenomenal learning environment. Learned a lot of great things about how to put together mortgages and how to understand guidelines and be able to write good loans. And then went and opened the OnQ branch with Ben in Gilbert, and that was a phenomenal season. Had a bunch of veterans, had a good local leadership as well, and so got to learn what it meant to like lead and grow. And we really grew our team through that season in phenomenal ways. Went from like a $20-ish million a year team, not branch team, to about $100 million a year.
Wow.
And so that was a phenomenal, and that's where I kind of grew into partnership, started, originating, building originators, building as, training, leading assistants, and growing, really grew people through that season. And Ben got to, focus on growing the branch while we were doing that piece together. It was just really good. And then through 2020, right, it was just like the right time to make the next step. We had a cool opportunity with SWBC come, and that's where Ben still is, and was a phenomenal move. Fantastic company, great leadership. What I'm excited about now is the opportunity to have a P&L, to have the ability to go grow multiple branches inside of a system that, I get to help set the tone for, and I get to help cast the vision, and then also turn around and be the coach, mentor, executor, right? That teacher, soccer coach in me gets to come back out and play. We're really going to go develop a bunch of high caliber people into a model that is built for everybody to win, not just the top of the house.
Which is crazy. Cool. I didn't know a ton about mortgage previously. I mean, I understood it at the level that any real estate team leader, or real estate agent, or realtor, investor would understand it, right? But I'd never been in the industry, and I purposefully sit in all these meetings with you guys because I just know if I'm just in every meeting, because I'm a quick learner, right? Yeah. So I'm starting to understand it at a way higher level, and obviously we're starting a mortgage company, right? And we're going to manage a P&L of a branch, and that's awesome. So talk to me about that, right? Because I want to start diving into that a little bit of like, what that looks like, because this really, to my knowledge, is the first of its kind, right? And every time I'm in a meeting, like I said, I'm learning just a little bit more, right? So so here you are, so Keith, I guess to give viewers and listeners a backstory, I won the Phoenix Business Journal Award for Small Business 2022. I'm walking out, or I didn't win it. Our team won it. Okay,
there you go.
We won it. I'm the one, obviously, that got the award. I'm carrying the award, and I'm walking out, and I appreciate that, by the way. It really is the team, man. Like I'm at a point where I'm still flabbergasted sometimes. I'm like, dude, how do we, like we're really doing this thing, like it's taken on a life of its own, which is really cool. It's the best feeling in the world, right? But anyways, so we get the thing. I'm walking out. This guy Keith walks up to. I've never met Keith. I didn't know who Keith was, and I almost blew him off, man. I was tired that night. I'm like, oh gosh, people walk up to me sometimes, and sometimes I'm just, I really try my best to like just, give everybody my all, right? But sometimes, it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and you're ready. I'm ready to go home, bro. I'm ready to go to bed. You know? And anyways, I obviously start talking to him, and he tells me that he did like 800 deals last year, right? In like Gilbert, Arizona, and I'm like, whoa, you did what? And so we hit it off, and I'm like, dude, and he's like, I'm with EXP, and I'm like, no way, I'm with EXP, and we obviously had that in common, and I tell him I'm looking for Zillow Flex. I'm like, dude, I've been trying to get Zillow for 4 years, right? Like literally I've been doing everything I could possibly do to get Zillow, kind of like a John Glutch or whatever, right? And
lots of guys trying to get Zillow Flex.
Right. And dude, I did, I've been up the food chain with everybody at Zillow. I mean, I've posted about it. I've talked to people. I've been on Zoom calls. I've everything you can to get the account, right?
Sure.
And in Arizona, as you know, getting a Flex account is near impossible, right? So Keith goes, dude, well, I'm looking to bring on, another team, right, to help us work some Zillow leads. And I'm like, dude, like, you tell me what I got to do.
Right.
And I'll do it, right? Like, at that point, I'm like, dude, whatever I got to do, right? And the next thing you know, he tells me, he's like, hey, and also, right, there's this mortgage thing. Because we started talking about JVs and MSAs, and, I was considering one time, and I'll probably do it again, but like a JV on the title, right? And all the other ancillary ways to make money, right?
Exactly right.
And, because as a team leader, if you remove my wholesaling business from the equation and the investment side, the team itself is not some like highly profitable company, at least as it was, right?
Right.
And I'm sure we can get it there, but the ancillary is where it's at. And so, anyways, I just to give the viewers a backstory of how we met, right?
Yep.
You then, when you got into this, you became Keith branch manager. But walk me through like that What did that look like? How did Keith pitch you?
Okay.
Like I'm curious.
Yeah. So Keith, my team had a relationship with Keith before all of this when we were at SWBC, even at OnQ. And one of my LOs, one of those guys that I helped train and develop, his parents are one of the top producers on Keith's real estate team. So that kind of set more of the background. I'm actually on vacation with my daughters dancing in Disneyland. And we got my whole family over there, and phone rings, and it's this LO, and he's like, hey, so I got an offer, and I think I have to take it. And I was like, okay, bro, well, first of all, happy for you, and I hope that it's everything you want. Second of all, like, here's the 4 or 5 questions, like, you need to ask out the gate, right? And he's like, oh, I don't, yeah. Like, so what are you doing? I don't know. What kind of bank is it? I don't know. Is it a broker shop? I don't know. Is it JV? I don't know. Okay. So like, you literally don't know what you're signing up for, but you want to go because your number one lead partner is there. So I get that, and I get the draw. But do me a favor, set me up an appointment with Keith. When I get back in town, we'll all sit down, and I'll grill him over the mortgage piece to make sure like you're landing in a good place. And bro, like, you know me, I've been leading you for 3 years. If this is right for you, I'm going to want that for you. And if it's not, then you still may do it, but at least you'll have eyes wide open.
Sure.
Right. So that was the context by which I met. So I'm walking into the meeting, literally trying to like
tear it apart,
debunk what Keith's got going on. Right. Thinking like, oh, there's going to be some holes in this. We all know how the realtor that thinks they can run a mortgage company goes and starts a broker shop. And we all know some of the challenges JVs have. So I'm waiting to figure out what path I'm going to pick to like, start poking holes in this thing. Then he sits down and he's like, actually, it's neither of those things. I was like, what else could it be? And that's where I learned for the first time about the way that Essex as a mortgage bank has partnered with more revenue sharing through that licensing agreement, and Essex and the generosity of the CEO there and the team there, and the ability to create like this true partnership where we actually have Keith is a employee of the bank as a business development leader.
Sure.
Right. So he's not a realtor. He's not on any real estate contracts. He has a team that does real estate, but he is actually an employee of the bank as a marketing person, which instantly like, oh, I had a marketing person at OnQ and she got paid bips off the branch. Like, this totally makes sense. Yeah. Right. And then what that allows for then is for him to have profitability off of the branch he's justified to be paid some or all of that.
Sure.
So now, and I walked through all the RESPA stuff with him, did a deep dive with the CEO, with a couple other executives, talked through it with the executive team from Moore, met with all of those guys a couple of times. And over the next, 6-8 weeks, kind of was like, I think I've vetted this enough. And as kind of scary as it is to go out on my own, right, to leave my partnership with Ben, which was thriving, and to go do this, it was really, really kind of scary. But it was also like, this would be like joining EXP in 2012.
Yep.
Right. This is like Microsoft in the 80s.
Big deal. Right.
This could be a massive, massive opportunity. And I somehow sat in a room where I got invited to come run the initial branch and help grow and cast vision and leadership for the entire organization. Yeah. Not just like, hey, come be a branch manager, one of 6 in Arizona or 12 or whatever, and like, we'll give you a P&L. It's way bigger than that. It's like, come grow an organization.
Right.
Come grow a massive opportunity that has the ability to not just partner with real estate teams and to create profitability for those agent teams, but also then to go and turn around and create revenue sharing and to be able to create an expansive model that has, revenue beyond what I'm doing today, right? So my biggest challenge in mortgage for the last decade almost has been every day I close a loan, I'm unemployed again.
Yeah, you are.
Right? Mm-hmm. Like I don't see $1 from that ever again, right? Because that's where the bank that pays me that commission, that's where they make all their money, sure. Right? Well, a lot of their money. So then we turn around and have an opportunity to not just, really understand what it is to go grow that business. Mm. Not just originate a business, not just run a branch, not just be a manager, but go lead an organization.
Right.
And that was something that I wasn't looking for, and I didn't know that I even wanted. It wasn't like I set this bar and like law of attraction kicked in. It was like Keith put it in front of me, and I was like, I need to do this.
Yeah.
I need to do this. And
so you went to meet Keith to tear this thing apart, poke holes in it,
and
right?
there was
and you ended up saying, "Hey, man,"
I ended up walking out of there going like, I think I'm supposed to do this.
You're like, I got to go too. I'm coming with you, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And that was, again, really unanticipated, but a really, really cool like moment where I was just able to like take a step back. I did my vetting. I did ask my questions. I did call resources, references. I did talk to, a lot of people at a lot of different levels in the organization, because as great as the model is, like, the bank has to work too. And the leadership of the model has to have integrity and be, with a clear vision. And you can put some of those things together, like there's magic that's possible. And that's where, again, took my time to do some of that, but didn't want to wait too long, right? Because this thing has got to go. And that's really cool. And I think the timing in our marketplace is really unique too. For sure. A lot of team leaders, a lot of loan officers, a lot of mortgage, experienced people that could benefit from something that's game changing, right? And that was like the thing I was looking for even before I took this interview. Those are the conversations we were having at a high level at SWC. Like, what can we do that is going to create a different value add and a different thing, so whatever it is, for this industry, for our clients, for our referral partners? Like, what is that thing that's different, that's going to change everything? And then I was looking for it over here. And it was sitting, with Keith the whole time.
For sure. So. Yeah. And it is so true, right? It's like when we talk about it in the meetings and stuff, but it's like real estate team leaders, across the nation, most team leaders aren't that profitable, right? Most retail team leaders are, they're banging their head up against the wall. They essentially have a really high paying job. It's very stressful. And really, I mean, unless you have 100 or more agents on a team, in my opinion, from seeing what's going on in the industry, they're not that profitable. Like you could make more money being a high producing solo agent with maybe a TC and a buyer's agent than you could running a 50-person team in a lot of scenarios, right?
Sure.
And the 50-person team looks great on the cover of the magazine, right? Looks like you're balling out, but that's not necessarily true 99.9% of the time. Which is why team leaders, I think, started going and saying we need to get into title, right? We need to go and do all these different things in insurance, right? And then like you said, a lot of these team leaders are going and they're doing MSAs and they're trying to get into mortgage, but there was really never a good, because I wanted to get into mortgage.
Sure.
Right? I said 2 years ago I wanted to get into mortgage, but I had no idea, like as a team leader and a real estate investor, I'm like, dude, like, and I'm a big thinker, I'm a big dreamer, right? I know a lot of people. But I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to put it together. Right? I'm like, but I couldn't wrap my brain around how do I do all this and all of that, and what do I gotta go, like, do I gotta go become an LO, and then am I violating some sort of, and it got complicated.
It gets real complicated. And there's some brokerages on the real estate side and many banks that won't let you have both.
They won't let you do both, right? Or if you have both, they won't let you practice both. I mean, you can practice one or the other, right? And so that's why I think, like, when one of the reasons when I sat down with you guys, I was like, man, same thing, right? I'm like, dude, like, this is legit, right? And I love that. So talk to me about, like, I guess more in depth, like, what are the differences between, this model, right? And then, going and a team leader or something going and trying to start their own mortgage company. I mean, like, what are the pros in your opinion when you look at the model? And you look at the real estate industry.
I mean, from a team leader trying to get into mortgage perspective, I mean, you really have two avenues, right? One is start your own broker shop, or one is a JV.
If you're a real estate agent or a real estate wholesaler, then you know that lead generation is one of the most important aspects to any business. You know that you have to consistently generate leads on a weekly, monthly, and yearly basis. That way your team has people to call, and that way you're constantly getting new opportunities in your company. I actually partnered up with a company called Rocket Lead Services, and they have VAs that are outbound cold calling on your behalf every single day. In my experience, there's a lot of different ways that you can generate leads as an agent or as a wholesaler. You can do pay-per-click, you can drive for dollars, you can do text messaging, you can do Facebook ads, Instagram ads, and so much more. In my experience, I believe that cold calling is by far the #1 way to generate leads in 2022. Not only is it my favorite way, but it is the highest ROI from what I've ever found. So Rocket Lead Services is one of the best companies out there for doing just that. They have virtual assistants that get assigned to you and to you only that are constantly calling motivated sellers to generate leads for your business. Again, this is for anybody looking to generate seller leads for their business. This is for a solo real estate agent looking to do a couple of deals a month, all the way to teams that have over 100 agents and you're looking to generate more leads for your team. Wholesalers that are looking to generate more seller leads, all the way to wholesalers that are looking to do many, many deals per month. Go to www.rocketleadservices.com and go ahead and book your free consultation. Again, that is www.rocketleadservices.com and book your free consultation. Now, let's get back to the show.
Right. Those are really the two primary avenues to get into mortgage. And there's a couple of things, right? So you have a 36-year-old independent mortgage bank that's backing you, right? That's Essex. That's established. That's, they have their own servicing. They retain most of their servicing. That's an opportunity, right, to go leverage from a compliance standpoint, leverage from a legal standpoint, leverage from a licensing standpoint, all of those things, HR, payroll, all of that's done.
Right.
All of that's done and handled, right? And the products are built and the support staff is built and the operations people are there and you have an understanding of, right, you have a team that's in-house, right? You're not, doing a broker shop in a box type of a model or you're just sending things out and pumping those in and you don't really know anything about mortgage or mortgage servicing or what it takes to be a good loan officer and originator. And you can probably find one of those, but again, the legal side, the setup side, the cost involved is all very, very, very different.
Yeah, and very difficult.
And difficult, right?
Like,
well, and most, let's be honest, most high producing team leader visionaries don't want to do compliance and legal.
No.
Those are like the last two worlds they want to get good at.
I'd rather go flip houses. I mean, there's a million things I can do to go make money.
Right.
Right. The last thing I wanted to do is that is why I didn't get in.
Yeah. Because the red tape is not, Dodd-Frank, and rightfully so, in a lot of ways, put a lot of red tape into our business. And so that makes it more challenging, right, to run a really profitable mortgage operation that way. The other piece of it then on the JV side, right, you have the cost that's a little bit more cost prohibitive. The other thing about JV is you only get based on your shares, right? So you kind of get out what you put in.
Yep.
Right here, as a business development leader, as you're building to be, right? We're gonna have an LO in your office, and as that LO does business from your team, but also from their sphere, from their book of business, from other relationships that they can go build, from other relationships that you can introduce them to. Now that LO does business, the profitability still flows through your branch.
Sure. Yep. 100%.
Right? So it's not just what did Austin put in, Austin gets a piece out, right? The JV's really a way to capture business creates a floor for the LO.
Agreed.
It is not a business that creates opportunity to grow for the realtor.
Yep.
Right?
Agreed.
So that's, I think, the biggest difference there. It does create some profitability for realtors, but if you're a big thinking, growing, building type of a real estate agent and a real estate team leader, the ability to go not only create more profitability from this model on your, by having a branch that you oversee, but also then you have the ability to go grow and multiply, right? So you have the ability to partner in the regional take by going and growing this thing. And that has, and if you have the mindset for it, it has really an unlimited potential.
Sure.
And that's what creates that sustainable, right? So that I don't wake up tomorrow unemployed type of a mentality, right? I'm not always hunting to kill. I'm building.
Yep.
There's a big difference.
Yeah,
So-
I love it, dude. I think it's an incredible model,
It's fun.
And it's not for everybody, right? But I think
Nope.
there's a lot of people it is for, and I think there's 1.8 or 9 million agents in the country, and how many of those are team leaders, right? And a lot of them are big team leaders,
Sure.
that, and then it begs the question, like when I talk to Keith, right? Keith's eventual goal is, and again, all of our goals are to help people, right? So obviously, when I look at the agent too, our goal is to help the agent. Well, Keith talks about like, hey, I'd love to give the agent 100%.
I know,
of
isn't
the
that cool?
commission, and I've never heard anybody say that, right? I'm like,
100% split on a real estate team.
right? It's what are you talking about?
You guys
right?
crazy?
Yeah. And but then he unpacks it a little bit, right? And he's like, because obviously it costs money to run a team, right? And so the average person would say, well, there's no possible way you could do that, right? And I've got to give them leads and a transaction coordinator and an office and a printer and open house signs and the whole thing. Well, how do I do that? And it's through the ancillary, right?
Yep.
But the ancillary, you got to do it right. And I think that's where it goes back to, okay, well, what ancillary are you going to do? How are you going to do it? What is it going to look like, right? And so then not only do you win, and then, like now your LOs are winning, and now but now your agents are winning, and now everybody all of a sudden becomes a winner.
Yeah.
Right? Which I think that's another piece that I love so much, right?
I agree.
Is, because I don't want to be the guy that charges, and I know a lot of team leaders that, and I don't want to name names, but they charge their agents too much money, right?
Totally.
And it's because they're trying to live their luxurious lifestyle off of just a retail team.
Right.
Right. And so therefore they've got to eat into their agent's commission more than they probably should in order to do that.
Yep.
Right. Or you got to have a 200 agent team.
Right.
And that's a nightmare. Right.
Right.
So, man, I love the way that it all works. I love everything about it. What did you like? What are some of your favorite things, I guess, about like the way that it is and the revenue share and the whole thing, like, and where do you see it going? Like, what do you see happening now? I mean, because you're 4 months in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my 4th full month. So, it's really crazy because that number's moved a lot, right? Like that vision piece and when you start to wrap your mind around this, like there's no reason that we're not running, right, a $1 billion a month operation in the next 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah.
Like that's an insane number.
Yep.
It's an insane number. But if you really catch it, like kind of the way EXP's grown lately, right? Like if you really understand the revenue sharing piece and you really understand how to run this and run this well, it's massive.
Yeah.
It's absolutely massive. So like my local like 3-year goal is like I want 10 branches doing 10 million a month. Right? Like that's let's build a base. But I think that will happen and the snowball will just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's a really cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah.
And we've got, guys that are going in a direction as far as understanding the lending side and people that are being generous at the top, which allows for this whole thing to be possible, right?
Yeah, because they explained that a little bit. Because they took the branch override, right?
Yeah.
And they put that towards, you guys convinced them to put that towards the revenue share model.
Right, which now instead of everything flowing to the regional, right, then a piece goes to this branch and a piece goes to this branch, a piece goes to this branch. And in the traditional model, like that's a really hard pie to slice up because somebody ends up not making money, right? But when you have leadership that understands economies of scale and understands what kind of volume we could do if we do this right, and if we truly come and disrupt and change this industry, the partnerships are endless.
Yeah.
Right. And at the same time, it's not just like growing this massive thing for us, right? But we're going to be part of it. We're into this thing, and,
Sure.
and we have some vision to grow it, and we hopefully are on the very, very front end of something massive. But how many lives are going to be better along the way? Like my LOs are already doing record months in their short careers, right? I mean, some of them, Jake's been here almost 2 years now that he's been licensed, and he'll do his best month ever in December.
Wow.
Right?
Well,
In December.
give me a rough...
Well, right. So he's a brand new LO,
Yep.
right? By all sorts of the imagination, and
In a declining market, technically.
In a
on
declining
paper.
market, and he spent 21 basically being like my right hand,
Mm-hmm.
helping learn the business, right?
Yep.
So he's really been like trying to build a business for maybe 6 months, 8 months, and he'll do $2 million
Wow.
in a declining market, in a model that, right, like he's never touched that number
Yep.
before. He's never even been close to that number before,
is
right?
a
And then
crazy
Rob's
number, yeah.
Rob's got 7 transactions for January. And it's like these guys are running and growing and being able to put together business that, there's a lot of LOs out there that if you're a true like non-call center, non-lead gen LO, just trying to go build relationships and referral partners, and you've been doing this 5 years or less, and you're doing double-digit transactions a month, or you're doing $2 to $3 million in volume a month, you're doing a great job right now.
Sure.
You are. Like that's a solid producer.
Yep.
That is a solid producer, and that's the kind of player that like could come. Like that's the kind of person that could put into this model, and we could pour gasoline on their fire.
Right. Well, you're putting in a lot of instances an LO right next to your real estate agent. They get the opportunity to just sit in my office.
The access is right. And so, right,
So if that real estate agent chooses to use that LO, which happens to be sitting right next to him,
well, the relationship's built, right? And
Right.
so your job, right, as the business development leader, you open up the door to the team, right? Hey, here's the access, guys. Here's the partnership.
Yep.
Let's go. And then it's our job to come in and actually deliver.
add the value.
Right. We have
Yep.
to add the value. We have to provide the services. We have to be the LO that your team deserves.
Sure.
Right. And we have to.
Otherwise, they're
provide
going to
the
use somebody else.
Correct.
But you'll obviously come in and you're going to be that because why wouldn't you be that, right?
Right. That's
Yeah.
what we have to build. Right. And that's the key to the whole thing. And it's going to be really, really cool to be a part of because there's a lot of great loan officers that are looking for something like this. Like, how do I get access to a fill in the blank type team,
Yep.
a Zaback team?
Yep. Well,
KP Elite team.
They all want to be a part of it, man.
They all want to be part of it. And then
You
you
know?
build relationships, right? So
Yeah.
that's, I know agents over the last 4 months that I've known for 4 years. I know them better in the last 4 months than the time and investment that I could have put in them in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not how it should be.
Right.
Right. Like think about like the amount of access that our people are going to have to each other. The relationships are naturally going to happen. The trust is naturally going to evolve. Those things are going to be the cornerstones of what we're going to build.
Sure.
Right. Because you have to have good people, and you have to have good people that can work together, communicate clearly, and that are both like-minded in how they serve their clients. And we have that.
Yep.
And that just promotes, right? Like good culture begets better culture, and it just keeps happening and keeps growing. So
Yeah, I agree. I think LOs are going to be really attracted to the model,
yeah,
And I think that big team leaders are going to be attracted to the model. Even medium-sized team leaders are going to be really attracted to the model, And I just think the creativity too of what you could do as a BDL, like, I can go to another team or maybe that isn't at the capacity of wanting to, have their own branch.
right.
And or be a BDL for a branch and I can, do an MSA or I can, there's different things that you could do.
There's lots of ways you can figure it out. And also like, this is what I love about Keith and our partnership is we've had a number of conversations where we have other BDLs like yourself trying to build reserves and Keith's going, hey, let me help. Like, what are the challenges you run into as a real estate team? I have 80 agents on my team.
Right.
We do 800 transactions last year. I can help you sidestep some of the things that your 10 agent team that you're trying to turn into a 20 agent team is going to come up against this year, right? And so that's for free.
Yep.
That's because partnership and investing in other people, it comes with money on the back end, but that's the goal. The goal is to go build people, to go grow an organization and go help people win. And the more people you can help win, like you've been doing this long enough, that you're going to get yours.
And that's why I love EXP, right? It's why I fell in love with EXP. I was with the same brokerage for 5 years. Great brokerage, knew the owners, very, very well.
Yeah.
And still to this day would consider them friends, but I got to, and I got pitched EXP 10 times from 2018 to 2021, right?
Sure.
And I said, no, which is interesting because I actually previous to real estate, I come from a network marketing MLM background, right?
Yeah.
And I'm actually a big advocate of MLM and network marketing if you're part of the right company, obviously,
Yeah.
right? Because first of all, the industry is massive. I mean, if you look at network marketing, you look at the Amways and the Mary Kays and the Avons and the Herbalifes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an industry that's been around forever, number one. They're arguably just ridiculously, it's a massive industry. And I love the personal development aspect of MLM, right?
I
These
had
guys,
to do some of that, right?
they bring in a lot of the top dogs when it comes to personal development. I always tell young people, I'm like, dude, go join an MLM company, right? And just go to every event, go to every mastermind, go to every everything you can go to, and just soak up the information. It'll make you a good leader. And then if you want to leave that industry, you can leave that industry, right? But anyways, long story short, then I get into EXP, and I love it because of the collaboration aspect, right? Hey, I can help other people win, and then I win, right? This is a beautiful thing, right? And then you see, real come around now to that concept, right?
Yep.
And I just think it's interesting because, and I'm totally open about it, and I have no interest personally in going to real. I love EXP. I think EXP is great. But you're starting to see these different companies that are like the light bulbs going off.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And I'm not going to name names, but then you're seeing some of the other brokerages and other companies that have been around a long time that they're going to eventually get left in the dust, I think, because the model is going to just be dated.
Yep.
It's just going to be a dated model.
I agree.
Right? And it's not that, the big companies, I'm sure they'll still be around, but they won't be as big, right? They're going to be smaller,
Sure.
And so the fact that in the mortgage industry now, you're starting to see that, I think is a really cutting edge.
I agree.
Like,
I agree. That's why I'm here.
I'm like,
here
dude, like I'm excited, and I think and I want to share it with people, and obviously I want to share it with the right people, and I don't want to, and that's what I've always done with
it's not for everyone.
It's not, right?
Right.
And I know that, and I know, EXP is not for everyone. I've never tried to recruit people to EXP, right? People call me or DM me or whatever, and I'll have a conversation with them. But the majority of my organization at EXP is just my team, believe it or not, And it's just because I've never put a ton of time and energy into that. But I almost think I'll probably put more time and energy into this.
Sure.
Than I'll put into that, and then I think that will attract, and the other 50 things that we're doing will attract the people who want to be on our team.
Sure.
And therefore, obviously, you're going to build the organization as a byproduct of that.
Yeah.
I
love it.
Yeah, it's just an incredible, incredible thing. So, man, dude, like, what does the future hold for you in terms of every other area of your life? You got 5 kids? 5 kids?
5 kids.
Dude.
Yeah.
You got
the
your
oldest is 9.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's the youngest?
2.
2. Okay, so you got your hands full.
So this week, is Christmas, so that's going to be a whole lot of fun. And our family and some of our best friends, we're finishing building our cabin, so we'll get that between the Christmas and New Year's. And
where's that at?
Sholo.
Sholo, okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. I've been up there a bunch.
Yeah, it's great.
My mom's got a cabin in Payson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that. You've been building it.
We've been building it for 7 months, 7 months. And that's, So, it's been a dream that we, again, kind of just unfolded over the last 2 years. And it's been really, really cool to be a part of and have that kind of come to fruition and realize like how great it's going to be able to have this retreat for our family and be able to share with others. But, it's going to be a really enjoyable piece of our story of our next couple of decades for sure.
How do you manage it all? Like I always like to ask entrepreneurs. Like you the 5 kids, you've got a wife, you're building arguably one of the most cutting edge things, or you're a part of one of the most cutting edge organizations or companies, I guess you could say, that is in this industry right now. We're going quickly. We were just in a 2-hour meeting a little while ago, right? Like, how do you manage it?
It's a great question. To be honest, not always well. Right? Like there's times where, threading the needle of this concept of balance, like is just, you have to throw it out the window. And I think, you read plenty on this, but the idea of achieving balance, like I think, for me, the only way I can do this, right? So I sit on the board of our church. Okay. I'm running this branch and growing this model. I have 5 kids and a wife that depend on me. Right. And then all the other things that come with life, family, friends, social, all of that. And I think the only way that you can do it is to just be genuine, transparent across all of it. Like I just have to be the same 100% of the time. Like I can't be different in here with you and then go home and be, have no energy for my kids.
Sure.
Right. And I can't, really invest in my social life and then, let my spiritual side, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of just being present. And I think that's the only way. And then giving yourself a lot of grace, right? And realizing like I wake up and get out of bed every day to try to help make somebody's life better. And sometimes that's really evident in my kids. Sometimes that's really evident in my business or my team. Sometimes it's really evident in church and discipleship. It kind of shows up in different waves, but at the same time, like you just got to keep going and trust that like God's got a next step, and I'm going to get up and I'm going to give my best, and I'm going to be gracious for the things that I didn't do well, because I don't always do it well. I really don't. Not. I mean, that's a lot. There's a lot on the plate, and I'm not a great calendar guy, but I try really hard to be really present when I'm present.
Yeah, dude, I love that. I think it's massive advice. I've always tried to do that, man. Like, be present when I'm present, right? Like, how you do anything is how you do everything. Somebody told me that a long time ago. Like, how you make your bed is how you are in your relationships, and how you put on your shoes and tie your shoes is how you are. Like, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? And that,
I love that.
I took that with me, man, when I was a kid, right? I'm like, dude, like, and I fail too, just like you, right? But I always like just talking to other fellow, business people, entrepreneurs, people that are just trying to do good in the world, right? And figure out like, hey, like, I want to learn from you, I want to learn from everybody, and we all can learn from each other. I
think one thing that you already know, right? So this is not advice, but I think it might be helpful for somebody else that's listening, is you surround yourself with good people that you trust and give them the space to be great. And when you do that, like, it's amazing how much time that gives you back and how much stress that takes away. Yeah. Right. And then you start unwinding the mental stress, and you start unwinding the time stress. And all of a sudden, like, your ability to be present and your ability to do these other things that really matter. Right. Like there's not many people, like anyone that has a family pretty much shows up to work to go like, I'm doing this for my family. Like, they're not doing that right. They're coming to provide. Sure. That's like the mantra of the American way of life. Right. But how many stories do we have of like, you're destroying your family because of how you're running your business?
Saying that you're doing it for the family.
Right. Yeah. So, this thing that you're committing your life to because of this group of people over here is actually damaging your relationship. Like, you got to figure that out and got to figure out how to create that space for people. And so I expect to be able to take that time. I expect other people to be able to carry the torch, and I expect them to take that time and invest in their families, right? That's one of the biggest things I've done with my team is, my Christmas gifts are staycations, and it's, quarterly, you're going to get away with your spouse, period. We're going to figure out how to make that happen, because that matters more than if you return me X investment on my salary that I pay you.
Wow. I love that.
It has to be.
Yep.
Otherwise it's limited, and it will eventually burn out.
It's incredible advice. Yeah. I mean, I get value from that, right? Like, I've got a bunch of employees and always trying to do cool stuff for them, right? And we got a couple of our top executives some little bonuses, and nothing crazy, but it makes a big difference. It goes a long way. Yeah. And they're very appreciative, I think, and very grateful, and it just makes my heart happy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I do, like, there's nothing that makes me happier than hooking other people up, right? Yep. And taking care of other people. I could get myself anything in the world, and it wouldn't make me half as happy as giving to them, right?
Amen. I love that, dude.
They always say giving is way better than receiving, and I could not agree more. True. Yeah, well, last thing for you, what if you were to go back, man, your 18-year-old self, or maybe even like your oldest, your 9-year-old, maybe your 9-year-old when they're 15 or something, and you were to just you could, for some reason, just give them one piece of advice, one thing you've learned. It could be business, man. It could be relationships. It could be just life advice. It could just be one thing. You just tell them, like, hey, man, like, just you got to do this, or believe this, or act like this. Like, what would that be?
It's interesting. I mean, there's a lot from a practical standpoint, a lot of errors that I've made along the way. That I don't want my kids or anybody else to repeat. But I think the biggest thing that I learned, and it was when I was in the MLM, right? You talk about like how there's so much personal development that happens there. One of the guys said to me, he said, something that I know is true is that money will make good people better and bad people worse. And it's really easy in our society to get caught up in chasing things and happiness through material, or happiness through recognition, or happiness through fill in the blank.
Sure.
And I think that's true, not just with money, but with lots of things, right? Like who you are is not going to be determined by all of those external factors. So you have to, no matter what it is that you do, no matter, your relationships, your achievements, your degrees, your job, your income, how many kids you have, all of those things, the core of who you are is so critically and vitally important. And to know a creator, to know a savior, and to know that and to rest in it and to be firm in it, no matter what all of this is, that my value isn't dependent upon how many likes we get from this podcast.
Wow. I love that.
Isn't dependent on what my W-2 says this year. That's a really hard thing to live in. I'm 41, almost 42, and I struggle with it. Yep. But I would like to have my kids not have to learn it the hard way.
Sure. Start practicing it early.
Trying to.
Practice it daily.
Trying to.
I love that, man. Hey, mic drop. Incredible advice. If somebody's watching this, Matt, and they want to get a hold of you, they want to maybe they're an LO, maybe they want to become an LO, they want to talk to you, or they just want to reach out and thank you for doing the pod. Where can people get a hold of you?
So cell phone is 602-705-5152, and email is mmaier, mmaier at Essex, ESSEX mortgage.com. Those are the two best ways, and then I'm sure we'll have everything connected to the social as well.
Yeah, we will. I'll put all your social media information down below. And man, I appreciate you being here, brother.
Thanks for inviting me. This is a lot of fun. I appreciate it. Anytime.
We'll do it again in the good ones like this. I'm like, man, we'll do it again in 6 months, and we'll talk about the updates. Be like round 2.
Let's go.
Well, hey, thank you so much for watching. If you're listening on podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, anything like that, make sure you leave a 5-star review. I would greatly appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm and drop a comment in the comment section down below. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next episode.